Hello and welcome to part 2 of my Crooked Moon campaign guide. Continuing where we left off during the last video, be sure to set a policy for your newly conquered province. Use Camp Ruckus for the added growth and obedience for now. Once the settlement no longer has to grow, which means the towns are level 3 and the main city level 5, change it to Give It Air to increase the money you get from that province by 5%. Now you might be wondering, where am I going to get all the gold I need to build out my recruitment town? And to that I say, turn your eyes north, east and south. As a general rule, you want to occupy dwarven holds to expand your territory, but your money comes from the vampires and the human factions, whose settlements you can sack with no loss to yourself. Send Skarsnik to the east and start sacking the towns of smaller human factions. Most of these are too weak to fight off a big goblin horde such as your own. In the meantime, you can also start making a second army in your starting town to expand the area you can sack at once. Your second army doesn't have to be a full stack just yet. If your second army has 10 to 12 units in it, including your lord, it'll be ready to sack some undefended settlements. To avoid retaliation, one of the best strategies is to raise any settlement on the turn after you sacked it. This will eventually create a dead zone around your home province, which will deter other factions from attacking you, as none of them will border you directly. It's usually also smart to destroy these small human factions early on, if you can, since otherwise they'll be absorbed by the Empire and the Empire will eventually try and pick a fight with you. Sacking and looting will be your main sources of income throughout the game. Early on, you'll likely get between 3,000 and 7,000 gold from sacking settlements, depending on how developed they are, but later in the game you can end up getting up to 50,000 gold from sacking a single big city. Crazy, right? By now, your goblin agent will likely have discovered a great deal of orc factions around your route east to Karak 8 Peaks. It's important that you start making diplomatic deals with these orcs as soon as possible, starting with military access and then going up to alliances. This will help solidify your relationships with these orcs, stops them from attacking you, and later in the game gives you the option of confederating them into your own empire. Note that it is extremely important not to confederate the orc factions early on. A lot of them are in very hostile territory and confederating them will yield you their armies, but these are not usually big enough to defend their territory alone. Worse, orcs don't look kindly on confederating other orc tribes, so once you confederate some orc factions you get a massive diplomatic penalty with other orc factions for a few turns, which may result in them declaring war on you if you don't already have pacts or alliances with them. In any case, what you'll be aiming for at this stage of the game is not just to develop your home province and thus get access to better unit types, but also to get Skarsnik's forces to wag. Like the regular greenskins, all of the Crooked Moon armies have a fightiness level. Greenskins are constantly looking for a fight, and the more fights they have, the happier they are. Long periods of inactivity or losing fights lowers their fightiness, and once it drops below a certain level, the army starts suffering automatic attrition. You can counter this with the Quell Animosity button, but that causes additional damage to your armies and should be prevented if it can be helped. A few ways to keep fightiness high is by setting your army in the raiding stance in hostile territory. This has a few advantages. The raiding stance allows your army to steal part of the income being earned by the owner of that province, the amount being based on the size of the raiding army and the amount of income being earned there, and automatically raises that army's fightiness every turn. The raiding stance also grants all your units in that army extra leadership and melee defense, which can give you a vital edge in combat if you know you're gonna get attacked. And while in the raiding stance, your army will reinforce damaged units, and you can recruit any units available to you anywhere in your faction, just at twice the cost in gold and twice the time it takes to recruit that unit normally. Still, this method means your armies don't constantly have to run back to your capital to recruit new forces, which is a major advantage. But let's go back to Skarsnik. After sacking a few human towns, he should start wagging, which is what happens if fightiness is maxed out. At this point, a free army with more or less random units will spawn next to Skarsnik, which will follow him around and aid him in battles. This is one of the main ways you'll be able to overcome heavily defended regions, by getting a Wag to help you out. Once you've got your Wag, move Skarsnik to Karak-Hirn, directly east of Grimhold. This town is part of the Black Mountains province, which will be your access route into the Badlands and the Dwarven realms. And the main reason I favor conquering it first over the vaults to the south is because the vaults tend to get attacked from all directions and as such are much harder to defend. The dwarves of Karak-Hirn are a campy lot, so they'll likely just let you march up to Karak-Hirn and siege it. Your first Wag army will go sit next to the sieging force on the next turn to provide reinforcements. With that, it should be fairly simple for your armies to assault Karak-Hirn despite the number of defenders, which will open the way for you to also claim Migdal Vungalbarak, which will eliminate the Karak-Hirn dwarven faction. Note on Wag armies, if a Wag conquers a city or defeats an enemy army, you don't get any loot from it, and Wag armies usually occupy cities or raise them if they can't occupy them. As such, I recommend using your main armies to siege and claim /sack/raise cities, and using Wag armies to deal with enemy armies, or using Wag armies as reinforcements. It may be tempting to have your Wag go around claiming settlements for you, but this rapidly expands your territory without giving you the gold needed to build up those territories. Once you've conquered the Black Mountains, you may notice mutinous Gits armies start trickling into your territory. These are going to be a major nuisance to you until you wipe them out, and you can't make peace with them in any way, nor will other orcs or even dwarves declare war on them. As a result, make sure you're prepared for their armies coming your way, because they can and will raid your lands, attack your armies when they're weakened after a hard battle, and sack, raise or even conquer your settlements. Turning your attention to the south next. You might notice you were already at war with Clan Angrund, and they're not gonna want any peace, so you're gonna have to deal with them to secure your borders. However, Clan Angrund's capital is very well defended, so be prepared for that. Meanwhile, your second army should have grown into a full stack, and should be striking ever deeper into the humans' territory. Remember that cities take a while to recover after being sacked, so sacking the same cities over and over is pointless. This army will be your main source of income. I highly recommend slowly moving it north and east, because moving into Britannia is a terrible idea due to your complete lack of spearmen units. Before you ask, no, regular goblins, despite being equipped with spears, don't count as spearmen, because they aren't charge resistant and don't get any anti-large bonuses. Defeating Clan Angrund will open up the way to conquering the rest of the vaults, but be careful. The vaults have two human factions to the southwest and the east, neither of which like you very much and are likely to declare war on you when you move your army away. At this stage of the game, you'll actually be in a fairly good spot. With 3 full provinces under your control, you should be earning enough money to sustain 3 or more armies. Be wary of attacks on Karag Angazar in the Black Mountains. Its position on the southern mountain wall makes it a prime target for mutinous Gits. If you'd like a build for money earning cities, which as the Crooked Moon should be every city not counting your first in the southern Grey Mountains, it's really simple. In small towns, build a Dahord and a guardhouse, with one town having a boss shack and the other having a boss pole until the city is fully grown. You can then replace the boss pole with another boss's shack if you require. In the provincial capital, build all of the economy related structures, fully build out their defensive structures, and to maximize corruption reduction, you can also add a shaman hovel. At this point, you may want to start clearing out some of your neighbors. Attacking the empire to the north will slow down their otherwise rapid growth, though taking down Altdorf may require a large dedicated force. The vampire counts to your northeast are actually a major threat as well, due to them spreading vampiric corruption, which can further lower your obedience levels. To the south, are the border princes Antilia, both of whom might have expanded a little, but will otherwise be a great target for easy raiding and sacking. In addition, to your far north lie some remaining dwarven holds in the northern Grey Mountains. Though I don't recommend attacking these guys, as they're heavily entrenched and theirs is one of the first places the forces of chaos will attack when they arrive. However, these are all just preparations for the final push into the Badlands. Here's where your mileage will start to vary more significantly. Depending on how long your conquests took, and a few random variables, the Badlands may be in varying states. In my save, Grimgor had basically wiped away all opposition minus one dwarven hold, while the mutinous Gits had expanded through quite a few towns in their efforts to get in my way. You may find, instead, that the dwarves will have expanded throughout the Badlands and now control most of it, in which case you're going to have to fight for every inch, because you won't be able to negotiate with the dwarves. Regardless of the situation, your target is Karak 8 Peaks. Note, however, that it will be heavily defended by at least one big army and a hell of a lot of garrisoned units. As such, I highly recommend you bring at least 2 armies to attack it, or one very experienced army with a fresh wag following it. Because of the sheer volume of units you will have to fight through, including very high tier units such as a giant and an Arachnarok, this will be a very challenging battle, so don't send in a bunch of fresh recruits and expect them to survive. If, however, you overcome the challenge of conquering Karak 8 Peaks, the benefits are enormous.